When Candace Morgan joined Pinterest, one of the fastest-growing Silicon Valley-based companies, as its first head of inclusion and diversity, she knew that the young company had a workforce makeup similar to many of its peers. The company was 49% white and 43% Asian. Hispanic or Latinx employees were just 2% of the staff, and only 1% were Black. At the leadership level, Hispanic, Latinx, Black, and Native American professionals were absent entirely. Candace, who had come from a decade-long tenure at nonprofit Catalyst, clearly had a steep hill to climb. But she also had something that many change makers can only dream of: allies at the founder level. Pinterest founders Evan Sharp and Ben Silbermann have been among Silicon Valley's most vocal advocates of diversity since 2015. The company has been at the forefront of the movement to share diversity data and publicly address plans to tackle their hiring woes. And with Candace joining in January of 2016, they doubled down on their efforts to right the ship. They started by setting hiring goals and publicizing them. At the end of the year, they were candid about their performance against those goals. In the course of a year, they more than doubled the number of employees from underrepresented minorities and increased the number of engineers from those minority communities to 9% of the overall engineering staff, a dramatic increase from a dismal starting point of just 1%. Likewise, the percentage of new hires who were new engineering graduates went from 2% to 9%, and nearly 20% of all engineering interns were from underrepresented groups. And in non-engineering roles, the percentage of underrepresented minorities hired grew to 12% from 7% the previous year. These gains are great, and they're a clear sign that Candace and the team at Pinterest are doing something right. But from a business standpoint, is all of this investment of time and resources really worth it? When a company is performing as well as Pinterest is it really wise to pump dollars into recruiting people from diverse backgrounds? Yes, it is. You see, building a diverse workforce is an investment that delivers tangible benefits, but many companies are still failing to grasp this. Miscommunications and misconceptions: how we got here. Skepticism about the validity of diversity hiring programs is nothing new. It has existed for as long as the programs themselves, and they have been around longer than you may realize. Still, today, there are murmurings in the halls of some of the most progressive companies that the time and resources dedicated to diversity hiring initiatives are wasted. It's a feel-good thing, some say. We just had a Black president for 8 years, say others. Isn't that a clear sign that diversity isn't a problem anymore? I've heard more permutations of these statements than I can recall. But the one I've heard most often is, shouldn't we just focus on hiring the best person for the job? Who cares what ethnicity they are? Many, including some of today's smartest and most progressive business leaders, still cling to these assumptions because of messaging. To understand how messaging plays the lead role in the entrenched misunderstanding of American diversity initiatives, we've got to go back to the start of those initiatives. For our purposes, that's the year 1921. Ford, FDR, and the origins of diversity initiatives in the United States. In the years immediately following World War I, the automotive market boomed in the United States. To meet the growing demand for new cars, in 1917, the Ford Motor Company began construction on a massive new factory in Dearborn, Michigan. But the economy soon slowed, and by 1921, Ford was faced with the prospect of sizable layoffs at its new facility. After hearing the news, leaders of the Black community approached Henry Ford, the company's founder, and asked him to not dismiss a disproportionate number of Black workers. After all, Ford employed thousands of skilled Black workers, and a massive layoff would be a disaster for Detroit's Black community. Ford agreed and did as they asked, and then he did something unprecedented. Following the layoffs, Ford created a policy stating that the percentage of black workers in the company's workforce should directly correspond to the percentage of black people within Detroit's population. The policy also stated that blacks should be represented in all departments of the company, and Ford appointed black officials within the company's personnel department, specifically tasked with hiring black people and ensuring that discriminatory hiring practices didn't occur. I cannot overstate how revolutionary this step was. In a time when discrimination was the norm and segregation was the law, Ford made diversity hiring both mandatory and enforceable. This program was also likely the inspiration for the first national diversity hiring program, which, sadly, would not be established for 12 more years.